I am Chris Hayes, Washington editor of The Nation, in for Rachel Maddow. We'll have more of her reporting from Afghanistan coming up this hour. But we begin tonight with President Obama back on the campaign trail in Nevada, attempting to save the seat of the top Democrat in the Senate, Harry Reid.
He doesn't always do what's easy. He doesn't always do what is popular. But he always does what's right for the people of Nevada. And that's why you've got to send him back there for one more term.
Over the next 4 months, as we creep towards November's midterm elections, prepare to see a lot of that from Barack Obama. High-energy campaign rallies, big donor fundraising events, desperate pleas to get out there and vote Democrat in November. Right now, the task facing President Obama and elected Democrats is a pretty daunting one. Find a way to hold off what looks to be a Republican electoral tidal wave. Doing that involves finding a message that will resonate with voters, and Mr. Obama now appears to have settled on one.
There is a real choice here. We know how the movie ends if the other party's in charge. You don't have to guess how they'll govern because we're still living with the damage from the last time they were governed. And they're singing from the same hymnal. They haven't changed. They want to do the same stuff.
So, broadly speaking, that's the strategy for Democrats. Argue that if Republicans take back power, things will get worse. Republicans, on the other hand, have an easier task. Their only objective at this point is to make these elections a vote of no confidence against the Democrats. Take the race in Nevada. The Republican running against Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid is, of course, one Sharon Angle. Perhaps you've heard of her. Sharon Angle has made herself famous over the last month by advocating, quote, Second Amendment remedies to take Harry Reid out, for arguing that impregnated rape victims should just make lemonade out of lemons, and most recently for calling the BP compensation fund for oil spill victims a Democratic slush fund. And yet, Sharon Angle still has a pretty good shot at beating Harry Reid because she gets to run TV ads like this. It goes on from there, on and on like that. Lots of ominous music and lots of staggering unemployment headlines from Nevada. On the surface, what's about to happen in November is sort of obvious, right? I mean, just look at the unemployment numbers in the country right now, and you can make all of the Republican landslide predictions that you want. But if you actually scratch the surface, it's a fascinating moment in American politics. And here's why. Over the past decade or so, this country has gone through such a series of cataclysmic failures that there's now this serial discontent with whoever happens to be in power. The last two elections, 2006 and 2008, have essentially been elections of discontent. They've been elections of frustration, and the party in power has paid. And this election, 2010, will be the third consecutive election like that. Democrats now inherit that discontent, and the Republicans stand to benefit from it. For Republicans, being the challenger is unifying necessarily. It's easier to keep together a coalition when you're in the opposition. That was certainly true of the center-left during the Bush years. Everybody was more or less pulling in the same direction. And now that's happening in a similar fashion on the center-right. Earlier this week, Sam Stein at the Huffington Post uncovered this chart that's been making the rounds in Democratic circles. It shows the staggering amount of money that center-right groups are prepared to spend on the midterm elections. More than $200 million for Republican candidates. Conservative groups are mobilized in a big way right now. And as much as Democrats might want to believe that the rise of the Tea Party might help fracture the right and siphon votes towards Democrats, as Dave Weigel notes at Slate.com today, the evidence doesn't quite bear that out. The Tea Party is much more aligned with the Republican Party than Democrats would like to believe. In a lot of ways, what's happening on the center-right amongst conservatives and Republicans right now at this moment is an exact echo of what was happening on the center-left during the Bush years. It's all of these outside groups prepared to spend unprecedented amounts of money to get their candidates elected. It's a mature and savvy grassroots focused on pragmatic victories, willing to bite their tongues in some cases in order to win back the majority. And what conservatives are adopting, what has worked for the center-left in recent years: coordination, activated grassroots, big independent expenditures, and a simple message that amounted largely to a referendum on the party in power based on people's disconsent. Okay, so now it's your move, progressives. It's your move, Democratic Party. It's your move, Barack Obama. The progressive infrastructure that swept Democrats into power came together under conditions of opposition. And it now faces the first election in which its own tactics are pointed against it. So the question right now for the left is, what does that infrastructure do in its first time defending incumbency? Joining us now is the former Democratic governor of Virginia, Tim Kaine. He's now the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. Chairman Kaine, thank you so much for joining us at 9 o'clock on a Friday night. We really appreciate it.
You bet, Chris. Glad to be with you.
So as Democrats learned during the last two elections, it's a whole lot easier to be the party in opposition, particularly when times are bad. And I'm wondering how you see this progressive infrastructure that was built up during those elections. How is that going to be mobilized over the next few months?
Well, Chris, you do have a good point. I mean, it is. I learned early as a city councilman that it's often easier to organize around a no than a yes. But here's what we have going for us. We do have a battle-tested coalition of voters who turned out heavily to change the direction of this nation in 2008. And at the DNC, what we focused on especially is continuing that coalition through Organizing for America, a grassroots effort of community organizers and volunteers around the United States that were activated around the stimulus and also around health care. And now we are turning that coalition to the midterms. In addition, there are a lot of allied groups, as you know, where we are working in tandem with them as well. It's going to be tough. Midterms are always tough for parties in power. But the Republicans are showing their hand. They are adopting a game plan that is basically bringing back the architects of the lost decade, Karl Rove, Ed Gillespie, and others. And Americans, they might not be happy yet, but they don't want to go backward. And I think we're going to have a very easy time pointing out that that's where the Republicans will take us.
Okay, so there's a sort of organizing aspect of this. There's a message aspect of this. As I mentioned before, conservative groups are also, there's a money aspect, right? Conservative groups are reportedly poised to spend more than $200 million during this election cycle. How concerned are you about the prospect of Democrats just getting spent out of the water here?
Well, we definitely are concerned about the dollars that are coming in. Look, the Republicans are apologizing to BP for a reason. It's so that they can go and get money from oil companies. They're going into the closet with Wall Street lobbyists for a reason, plotting to vote against Wall Street reform so they can get money. And so we have to be very concerned about that. But the DNC, on our side, we're raising historic amounts, vastly more than, for example, we raised in 2006. We probably raised 40 to 50% more this year than we raised in 2006 when we were that energetic offense trying to take back the Senate. We're raising it all from individuals. We don't take PAC and lobbyist money so that we can tell our supporters that it's not the big guys and the special interests that are buying up the seats at the table.
Well, but
the money concern is one that we have, but look, we're going to have the resources to be successful.
Let me just follow up on that, because, I mean, individuals, there are individuals and there are individuals, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is a party in power is raising money partly on what it's doing legislatively, and there are people that are donating to the Democratic Party because they're the party in power, right? I mean, I just want to be clear that even without PAC money, it's possible that special interest money is coming into the Democratic Party.
Well, again, we're not taking PAC money and we're not taking lobbyist money. You can't necessarily tell why anybody gives, but we do this. We turn away checks from PACs. We turn away checks from federal lobbyists. That's new for the DNC. And the fact that we've done that because the Obama campaign did it, and we want to be able to